Hi everybody, Leslie here. I've got 3 new sliding puzzle cards with you today, hopefully all showing some slightly different techniques. This one is a little bit of a back to basics. It's a bit bigger than the original ones I made. So this is a 5x5 inch puzzle on a 6-inch square card. So if that's the size that you like, I've used some lovely Lavinia stamps today to do this one. And then the next one is, it's actually using centimetre measurements. So this one's using metric, but it's to give a much smaller puzzle piece. So hopefully you can see the size of the pieces on this are much smaller. So these are all inch square pieces. These are actually 1.5 centimetre square pieces, which I think is probably as small as I would go, because I think it would be too fiddly if they were any smaller than this. And if you don't do things in centimetres, I'd still watch this one because I make the panel first, and it's a die cut inlay technique, which would obviously work with the bigger sizes, whatever size you want to make. But I give all the dimensions for this, and I'll make sure that all the dimensions for my cards for the sizes you need, because this one we've not done this size before, I'll put those all on my blog, and my blog is www.handmadeinwindsor.co.uk. So my blog's on there. You'll find it somewhere it says blog, and I'll make sure that the blog post with this in it, which will be the most recent one if you're watching it in mid-September 2023. So yeah, I'll make sure that all the dimensions that I talk about for this will be on it. I actually wouldn't recommend doing the die cut inlay technique on this size, because I get in a bit of a pickle with lots of little tiny pieces right on edges. And of course, if it's bigger pieces, you won't have as many edges. So I love the technique, and it does work. There's actually nothing wrong with this card. It was just really fiddly with the technique I chose to put on the top. I would stick to something with things that can't fall off if you're going to do the tiny puzzle size pieces like this is. So I love this card, but I wouldn't make it again like this. And then the last one is a shaker card. So I thought I'd show you how you can leave part of your card attached. It wouldn't need to be a shaker. So in this instance, all this bottom piece will slide off, and these pieces up here slide off, which actually makes for a really tricky puzzle because these bits look very similar to these bits. It's only the ones with the letters on that are more obvious where they go. But you can leave part of your card panel intact. Obviously, it works well for a shaker because you can't cut your shaker up, clearly. But you could, obviously, for Christmas cards, do something fun as well with this idea. But I was just going for some nice autumnal colours today, and I thought this was a really nice masculine make as well. So this would work, you know, for a man's card. So that's another technique. So we've got 3 different lovely techniques. If you've already liked and subscribed, thank you so much. If you could like this video, brilliant. If you're not subscribed to me, please subscribe if you like my content, because I'm creeping ever closer to my 1,000 subscribers. And if anybody doesn't know, until you hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, if YouTube put adverts on all your videos, but they keep all the money from it, and it would be lovely if I could buy some more craft products or something with, you know, from making videos. That would be amazing. I am actually just going to apologise. I've made these 3 cards over 3 different days because it was so ridiculously hot here in the UK. It was 33 degrees C, which is hot. So sorry if you work in Fahrenheit, but 33 degrees C is really hot, and it was very humid, and my ink wasn't drying when I was doing this card. And then my daughter was ill, so I had a day where I couldn't do anything because I was looking after her. Fortunately, she is better now, and we think we know what the problem was, which is also great because hopefully we won't have her being ill again. So yeah, if I repeat things, it's because I can't remember what I said 3 days ago when I made this one. And yeah, I've come back and made the other 2 on different days. So sorry if there's any repetition, but yeah, some new techniques, so something a bit different. So let's get started. Okay, first card today. I thought I would use some of my lovely Lavinia stamps because I've not used any of them yet. So I think this one's called Fairy Web. I've got Tree Goddess, I think this one's called. Then I've got a greeting that says, have a fairy happy birthday. And then I've got the miniature slender mushrooms. So these are all Lavinia stamps, which is British company, laviniastamps.co.uk. The ones that I got off Facebook Marketplace, you can see these were really well used, so well loved stamps. So they're new to me, but they're not new, so hopefully they'll all stamp okay. And I thought I'd do some nice autumnal colours. We're in September, so I thought I'd go for kind of sunset autumny colours. So I've got Distress Oxide, I've got Scattered Straw, Rusty Hinge, Crackling Campfire, Lumberjack Plaid, and I'm going to do VersaFine over the top after I've made some sort of lovely background with the Distress Oxide. So I thought I'd go with a 5x5 card just because that's sort of what fits the stamp. This is just like they're like the drip trays that they use on bars, and you can get them on Amazon. I'll link them if I can find the ones that I've used. And they just hold, oh, I haven't opened this yet. They just hold the ink pads whilst you're ink blending. And this is a new to me, my new Distress Oxide. This is one of the last two colours that I didn't have, and I got this at a craft show last weekend. So my Distress Oxide, until Mr. Holtz releases some more, I've got them all. So you can see I've just gone for nice autumny colours. I've got 3 blending brushes ready. I'll have to reuse some. If you're using one of these blending mats that holds the ink on it, make sure you turn it with your card. I turned the card and not the blending mat, and now I've got the red up on the yellow. But it doesn't matter. We're over stamping and splattering and things. It won't matter. It's not a perfect blend, but it's fine for me. This is one of those craft spritzer bottles, and I've got some Perfect Pearls in the bottom here, so I'm just going to give it a really good shake and get the Perfect Pearls so it's mixed back through the water. And because this tends to go everywhere, let's just give it, and what this will do, it'll give it a really lovely shimmery effect. And because I want to use this quite quickly, I am just going to heat dry it. You could just leave it, but I am going to give it a quick heat blast. So hopefully, yeah, I'm hoping that you can see on camera that the Perfect Pearls has just given it a really nice shimmer, and it is all over. And I don't mind that I got some little spots. I'm stamping over, like I said, in black. It's just to give me some interesting background. Right, I think what I'll do is I'll stamp the cobweb in this top corner, and then if it's not quite to the edges, I'll just extend it with my pen. So I'll just find a black pen to extend with. And I need to clean my Misty. My daughter's been at it again. Just making sure my card's in that bottom corner. Beautiful. Let's just give it a little press. Oh, and I've moved it. Never mind, it's cobweb, it doesn't matter. But that's what happens if you don't manage to push it straight back down in the corner. It was perfect first time, but I've got a double stamp. But fortunately, because it is the cobweb, I don't actually think it matters. So I'm not going to worry. These things happen. All I've done to finish off my panel is I used my Spectrum Noir art liner, which is just a black fine liner pen, just to extend any little bits of the cobweb out to the edge. And I did a tiny bit on the tree and a tiny bit on the bottom of the mushrooms. But don't do what I do and have all inky hands and get it all over your panel. I'm just going to carry on and use it because I don't think anyone will really notice once it's all cut up. And I did overstamp ever so slightly on the Have a Fairy Happy Birthday, but it kind of looks like it's shadow of her feet. So I've just gone with it. So you can see it's all nice and sparkly. And that's all ready to go. So that's on a 5-inch square. So what you need to make your puzzle, I'm going to leave that drying and hopefully I won't get any more inky splodges on it. So you need a backing piece. It can be in any colour, but it will show through. So I just went with craft because I've got loads of long strips of craft. Thought I'd use some of it up, and I've just gone consistent with one colour. So, but it can be any colour. You won't see it once the puzzle's made. So I've got another 5-inch square, and then I've got 5 strips that are 5 inches wide by ½ inch, and they can all just be scraps. So 5 inches by ½ inch wide, 5 of them, because this is a 5-inch square. And then we need 6, so however many inches you're doing plus 1, that are 3/4 of an inch wide. So they're 5 inches, same width, but this time they're 3/4 of an inch, and we've got 6 of them. And it'll become clear in a second what we're doing with everything. So on your 5-inch square, you want to mark at 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. So just mark at each inch and draw a line across. Do it in pencil. You'll never see it. It's going to disappear in a second. So you just want to mark, and I've just done this so that it's a bit quicker. So I drew a straight line across, and I've stuck my foam tape across each of those lines. And I just used my board to line it up with my lines so that I got these nice and straight. You're looking for something that's roughly 2 millimeters, 3/16 of an inch in depth, and about 5 millimeters, which is about 3/8 of an inch wide, something like that. But this, you can see the sort of scale of it. So you want a piece at the top and a piece at the bottom, just right on the edge, which is what they are. They're right on the edge. And then where you've marked your lines at 1 inch all the way up. So you end up with nice, evenly spaced lines like this. The top and the bottom one will be slightly narrow, but that's okay. It all works out. You don't need to worry about it. It does all work. So for the 1/2 inch wide ones, you want to do the same thing. You want to stick piece across the back, in the middle. Back, front, doesn't matter. They're the same on both sides in my case. But if you are using scraps that's got stamping, say, on one side, or inky mess on one side, stick your foam tape on that side, because you'll never see this side. This side you'll see. So if you are using real scraps with ink or something on them, and this is what I mean about using your board, just line it up. So I haven't drawn a line across on these. I'm just lining it the centre up with a line on my glass mat. If you've got a cutting mat with straight lines, and I'm just eyeballing it so that it goes straight across the middle. So that's all of our sticking part done. So these are the big pieces that are going to slide in and out with our puzzle pieces on. Don't cut them up yet. This is how we get our spacing nice. Okay, so they're just sitting in there. Everything's 5 inches wide. Now, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots. So we've got kind of a middle. So this one's in the middle. So you want to start with one of these two either side. Don't pull your tape off this piece, okay? You want to take your tape off one of the ones either side of the middle. The spacing ends up better if we do it this way. And we're just going to sit our first one in the middle of that. It doesn't need to be dead accurate. It just needs to be straight across the middle, square like that, okay? So that's our first one stuck down, okay? And then we're going to work our way upwards here. So our piece that's going to slide in and out, you just want to butt it up to it. Not really, really tight. So I'm just butting that up and I'm just holding it. And then the piece that's already stuck down, I've taken the backing off that, and I'm going to butt this one up to the one that we've got there, that I'm holding. I'm just going to butt it up to it. Again, try and get it as square as you can with your edges. So now this piece slides in and out. Okay, so you don't want it so tight that you can't move this, but you don't want too much wiggle room either. So this slides in and out nicely, and then push those down. And then do the same thing. So I slide in and out one, just hold it so it's just touching. Take off the tape off the top one, and don't worry, this will overhang this top edge quite a lot. Don't worry. This is why we did it this way. It means you don't have to worry about having an accurate measurement at the top. Okay. So again, slides in and out. Okay. All happy. And then we're just going to turn it over and do the other thing, same going upwards. I find it easier flipping it over. You can work your way downwards if you prefer, but I found it easier working this way. So take that one off. So this is my slidey in and out piece. I'm just holding on to it. And I'm just going to butt it up to it. It's not as tight as I'd like it to be. It's not the end of the world. It just means the pieces will be slightly looser. But I don't think my foam tape... Oh, no. You know, it's such a hot day. My foam tape let go of it. It's about 30, 31 degrees, something like that, today in Windsor. And that's in Celsius or centigrade. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, I'm afraid. But it's hot. It's forecast to be, even though it is, the 7th of September as I'm filming this, it is forecast to be the hottest day of the year so far. So, unlike a lot of places in the world, we've not had the hottest of summer. So there we go. So we've got sliding in and out, sliding in and out, sliding in and out, sliding in and out, sliding in and out. Now, keeping those just in that order, you want to flip it over, and anything hanging off the back, you just want to trim off now. So we're not trimming our 5-inch panel, just anything that's got any little, tiny little overhang. And I've done pretty well on both sides. Top and bottom, you'll take any of that overhang off. So there we go, we've got our background ready to go. So these now all need to be cut to 1 inch wide. Now, it's up to you how you do that. You can mark them, you can do it on your trimmer, you can do it with your scissors. And at this point, I do slide them all back in just to keep them so I don't lose any. Okay, so the last step is to cut this up and stick it to our little foam shapes. This 5-inch square is going to get cut into 1-inch strips, and then we'll cut it the other way to make it into 1-inch squares. And you don't have to have a guillotine, you can do this on a trimmer, whatever cutting platform you prefer. So just get them all lined back up. So you can see I'm just using a piece of scrap just to keep everything at this end, so everything's pushed against the bottom. And keeping everything the right way up. So we need to start in a corner. I always start in my bottom corner. I'm going to take the backing off my first strip. I'm going to get my first little square, get it tight lined up into this corner and stick it down. Okay, so our first piece is done and it's in there. And don't worry if your little pieces aren't quite lined up tight to each other. We'll give them all a little trim at the end. So holding it in there, lining my next piece up with the bottom and with the side. Hopefully it's gone in straight. So I'm just going to go along and do each row exactly the same. And every single time I've done it, I end up with it hanging out the end here. Don't worry, we'll just give them all a little trim. So there we go. So even though I cleaned my hands, not with water, with hand sanitizer, so alcohol gel, before I started, I have spread more and more of the black ink, so it really isn't drying today. But hopefully you can see that's all nice and flat, and it will all sit flat. So all you need to do is slide all your pieces out. On the back, if there's anything just hanging off, can you see this edge there? I've got my scissors tipped. I'm not cutting the top panel at all, and any little bits that might be able to see, I'm just going to give them a little trim. I've already dropped my card blank on the floor and made a right old mess of it, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to see. So I've got marks all over this. So all I'm going to do is make a frame so that she'll sit in the middle of my card like that. And we'll put a black frame, I think, around her because I think that'll look nice with the black stamping. So you can do it one of two ways. You can stick this onto another panel before you put it onto here, or you can stick it directly onto your card. I'm going to have a go at doing that and try and get it in the middle. And to help me do that, because my board's got centimetres, not inches on it, I am going to get out my cutting board that's got inches on it because it'll just help me line it up better. And once I've got the frame on, these will obviously all stop falling off. It's not perfectly square, but it'll do. It's not too bad. Now, so the way I did this is my thicker foam tape, so it's the same one. And all I did to make my frames was, with my top row in place, is do a line of foam tape, so this is slightly thicker, and butt it up to it. And then this acts as a stopper on this side as well. Just got some scraps of black card. I'm just going to cut myself 6 inches, which is what this is, more or less. And I might do them all at half an inch. So these ones will just sit around like this. It's not the straightest on the card, so the frame's not going to be straight either, but hey, we're handmade, we're not Hallmark, we're not machines. And then the last one, I'll just stick it in there So just to neaten it up, I've just trimmed it. So there we go. Considering I stuck that on really, really badly, it's not actually turned out too badly at all. So there we go, with our black frame around it. There's a tiny bit of my white card showing here, but you won't notice it, I don't think, once it's stood up. If you're not very good at getting things to stick square when you're making things, don't stick it directly on your card blank. Stick it on a piece of card that's bigger than you need it to be. So in this case, 6 inches square. Stick it down, make your frame round the outside, and then come back and cut around with your 1/2 inch border around, and then stick that onto your card blank. And I should have done that because I never get it to work. I'm not very good at making things square. So there we go. So stands up, add your greeting, whatever you want inside. The pieces only slide out from this side. So if you put it in an envelope with it done, or when you mix this up, you do need to keep them on the right lines because we're not doing really accurate measuring, they won't sit flat. So if you send it with it mixed up, just keep them on mixed up on the same lines, tends to work the best. Or what I've done, the only one that I've sent to anybody so far, I sent it with all the pieces just loose in the envelope, or you could put them in a little clear bag in the envelope so that they don't slide around. But yeah, hopefully you can see the shimmer on that. Not too many of the smudgy marks. But yeah, handmade. Don't worry about the smudges. Nobody, especially on something like this where it's a lovely silhouette, nobody will really notice. In fact, some of the smudges around her face almost look, again, like on purpose shadows. But yeah, sadly, I think it's just too humid for anything to dry properly today. But yeah, there's that one. Let's do another. So for this next card, I'm going to go right back to the beginning, where this was one of my proof of concepts when I did my first sliding puzzle card video. And these are actually 1.5 centimetre squares. So all the cards I've made so far are 2.5 centimetre squares, which is almost exactly an inch. It's slightly out, but 2.5 centimetres or an inch square. So we're going to go smaller. And I'm going to do it in metric, and I'm going to go metric all the way through. So if you can't work in centimetres, you might want to skip this bit. I get some people don't work in centimetres at all, but we're going to go metric. And we're going to do that because it gives us nice dimensions to get smaller pieces. So even if you don't work in centimetres, I'm going to do some die cut inlay into this lovely die. And this one is a Crafter's Companion one. It is called Peony Frame. And the dimensions of this are, it's about 8 centimetres by about 10.5 centimetres. So I thought that would go onto a 9 by 12 size piece. So if you think, if I'm making 1.5 centimetres square pieces, everything needs to kind of be divisible by 1.5. So if you work in 3 centimetres. So I'm going for something that's about 9 by 12. I'm going to stick with some autumnal colours. And I thought, if we do some die cut inlay, I've not done a puzzle yet with die cut inlay. So I've prepared some bits in advance. So I thought we'd do a black frame, and then we do some colouring on craft, and then I think I won't die cut inlay everything. I'm going to fill in any bits that are left, probably with some gilding flake. All I've done to start with is this is some of the Stick It double-sided, and I think I've cut this to, if I'm going for 9 by 13, I want a bit of extra just to play with. So I think I've cut this to 10 by 13 centimetres. So I've grabbed from my scrap. I didn't want really thick card because I want to be able to cut through this. So this is just an envelope that my kid's written to Grandpa on, and we've not sent it. We've sent the card, but we haven't actually put it in the envelope. It's probably gone in an envelope at some point with my card in the post, so we won't post in 3 envelopes. And we're going to stick this onto here, and then we're going to do some die cut inlay with this. So I'm just going to go, this is just another piece of scrap from my scraps bin of craft card. I'm just going to, and this is quite thick card, by the way, so I am just going to go and cut this one out. I've just kept it in the die, and that's because I want to colour on the front of this. So what I've done is, this is the Glad press and seal, which in the UK you can get it. It's not as common in the UK, but you can get it usually on Amazon and places like that. But it's kind of like a low tack sticky. So all I'm doing is using the press and seal just to hold all my pieces together. I've got all my bits on my press and seal so that when I come back to inlay it, I know where all the pieces are supposed to end up. So all I'm going to do is colour the pieces, and I'm going to go for some nice autumnal colours. So making my life easy, I went and got these are my Altenew artist markers, and I just picked one of the sets out, put in the description, but it's the one that's got greys, oranges, greens in it if you've got the Altenew markers. So I just thought I would just do some quick colouring onto here. I've just gone really fast in there. You can see, not been too worried about going over the lines, anything like that, because I'm not using the border. It's going to get popped into this black frame. So it looks pretty good as it is, but it's going to look better, hopefully. So now our next step is to take the backing off here and then inlay all those pieces back into here. So I'm just going to pop you on fast forward, obviously, while I do that, because it's not that interesting to watch. So there we go, there's my image, all die cut inlay, and I've still got sticky obviously all around these edges. So my idea for that was, we're going to use some gilding flake. Now I've got IndigoBlu's Mega Flakes. I pulled out a couple of different colours. This one's Brighton Pear, which might look quite nice with it. And this one is Yorkshire Dale. Now these grow when you open the pots. So this one's in its own big pot. This one, actually, I think I might quite like. There's not a lot of the green on, so I'm thinking the green tones with the coppers in this might be quite nice. Don't blow too hard. And this is why, even though I'm just using this envelope as scrap, the reason that I left the envelope is obviously going to get cut out of this. And the reason I left it is because it actually gives me a nice handle. So I'm just going to hopefully get my gilding flakes, and then we can cut it out to try not to lose any. And we can cut this out to the size we actually want it to be. And I've just got a really old stiff stencil brush just to come in and take any of the excess off. There we go, all burnished and shiny and lovely. And my sticks too hadn't adhered really well to this envelope, but actually it works really well with the little bits of the craft showing through, and I've managed to gild one of my fingernails, in fact 2 of my fingernails as well. And this is just a little tip. If you're using glitters or powders or something like gilding flakes that does go everywhere, this is a piece of Swiffer cloth. So this is the stuff that you get for cleaning your floors. And it works really well just to run it over your panels as well. Right, so that more or less is our top panel complete. We just need to cut that out to, as I said, I'm going to go for 9 centimetres by 12 centimetres. Now, I'm feeling this, and because this, I think, unfortunately, isn't going to be quite thick enough for my puzzle pieces. I think these might be a bit flimsy, so I am just going to back this, and I'm fairly certain my trimmer will still cut through all the layers absolutely fine. I am going to back this and put it on something just a bit thicker. That's my puzzle ready to cut up. So now's the part where we've got some different dimensions. So we're going to for 1.5 centimetre squares, and for the measurements for this card, that means we're going to need an awful lot of 1 centimetre wide strips. So for the pieces that we're going to stick on the back of our puzzle pieces, and for the pieces that are going to be stuck down to the card, you need them all to be 1 centimetre. So because this is 9 centimetres wide, all of my strips are cut to 9 centimetres wide, and I've just pre-cut lots of them. So now I've just got my piece that I'm going to use as my back panel. This can be a piece of scrap. You're never going to see this other than in between our strips. So I'm going to cut this to 9 by 12. And as I've done for every other puzzle before, we need to mark our bottom piece. But this time, our pieces are 1.5 centimetres. So we need to go along and mark at 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5. So our last one would be up to the 12 mark. And then all we're going to do is draw a line across at each of those. So our lines should all be 1.5 centimetres apart. This is 0.5 centimetre wide foam tape. It cannot be any wider than this for these measurements, or it will not work. You want to get that lined up, going across in the middle of that line as straight as you possibly can. If you were making your own foam tape strips at this point, so like I showed making them with the funky foam, if you were doing that, I would actually make them a little bit smaller. So obviously these are around 5mm wide. I would make them about 3 or 4mm wide, just to give you a bit more space. We need one at the top and one at the bottom, and I'm actually just going to slide it just a little bit off the edge. So I've just got a little bit more space in this gap here. So my foam tape for the top and the bottom, because mine is 5mm foam tape and I haven't got anything that's narrower, I've left it so it's hanging off the top there a bit, and I'm going to do the same at the bottom. All these pieces need to fit in these slots. So that one's, some of my pieces are slightly narrower. So I'm just checking that I've got a piece that's going to fit in every slot. And this is why my top and my bottom ones are hanging slightly off the edges. I think it will fit in there just nice. It's a little bit tight, that one. I think this one's going to be even tighter. Yeah. I'm just going to pull that off. So that's the other way to make your foam tape straight, by the way. You can use a spacer. So yeah, you can see my foam tape is hanging off the top and the bottom, but because this is going to be stuck on the back onto a thing, I'm just going to leave it hanging off, and we will cover it probably with a frame later. So I'm not even going to trim it off at the moment. Then we need to do the same thing with our pieces and stick our foam tape in the centre of these. Exactly as we've done before, we've got our pieces that will slide in and out. Some are tighter than others. Let's see if we can. Yeah, that was a bit better. So depends how accurately you've stuck your tape, how accurately you've cut your centimetre pieces, but everything does slide in and out. So we've got exactly as we've been doing before, but this time everything is 1 centimetre wide. Okay, so we're going to find the middle. So the centre piece is this one. We're going to peel the tape off, our centre one, and get one of our pieces and making sure these two are tight in there, get that in between those two pieces. So this is why I said there's no wiggle room. So this one's stuck down, this one can slide, and this one can slide. So making them 1.5 centimetres wide, there should be no real wiggle room. I'm making sure our pieces still slide in and out. We've got our base. So all of the pieces stuck down are 1 centimetre wide, and all of the pieces on the back of our T-pieces are also 1 centimetre wide. And my tape is 0.5 millimetre wide. So obviously, because I'm going for a 1.5 centimetre square puzzle, everything should fit fairly tight with not much wiggle room. And I've got an overhang at the top and the bottom, and I'm not going to worry about that too much for now. All I am going to do is just check that I've got everything sat square and just trim anything off the edge. And because I need my bottom edge to work to, I am going to now trim the bottom. I'm going to leave the top because there's not a lot of foam tape holding on there. So I'm actually going to leave the top piece because I only need one edge to square everything up to. So we're going to go with this bottom edge as what we're squaring everything to. So I hope that makes sense. Now all I need to do is cut this piece into 1.5 centimetre square. I always show you when things go horribly wrong. So because I'm using my trimmer rather than my guillotine, I've managed to pull a piece out. Can you see that? So that was obviously not stuck very well. So I've got the little pieces, which I've saved, and I will, in a minute, stick those back in there. So I've obviously got 2 leaves I need to rescue now, and I've also messed up a bit at the edges, but let's keep going. What I am going to do is flip this over and temporarily tape it back together and mark it so that I can cut it with my guillotine, because I think I'll ruin less that way. Right, so as we've done every other time before, I've got all my pieces back into the right order. Let's just slide those up out the way a second. And I have repaired all those little bits that had slid out or got caught when I cut it. So if you are going to do die cut inlay, I would recommend doing it on the bigger pieces. It gets quite fiddly at this size, but I'm really liking the look and how it's come out. So I've also just gone along and cut these all into 1.5 centimetre pieces, and like we've done every other time, I am starting in my bottom corner and getting my bottom corner in straight and square, hopefully. And I'm just going to go along as we've done every other time and get everything stuck nice and flat. All I'm going to do is take all the pieces out, and as I've done every other time, all these little overhangs, just give them a little haircut. So here we go, all complete. There's our puzzle, absolutely finished. I've still got my overhang at the top. I'm debating whether to cut it off. I think I might, because I think I like it as it is, and I think I'm going to put it on I'm thinking I might put this on a black card blank, because I've got some A6 black card blanks. So I think I've got enough at the top there that I can cut this off. So let's hold our breath and hope our foam tape stays intact down there. So I'm not going to put a frame around this. I think this is a Craft UK A6 card blank, and I could do one of two things. I could leave this like that, centered, or I could shove it up to the top. And this die set came with the thank you random pieces sticking to the tape. And let's see, would the thank you, actually it's dual purpose, it's thanks, so you can cut the S off, or so you can use it as thanks, or you can use it as thank you. So let's see. You know what, I think I'm just going to go with the thanks, because I would want to hang the U off the bottom and I wouldn't have space, so I think I'm just going to go with the thanks since I can. This is what I meant, where I've got this little bit of foam tape hanging off the top doesn't matter, because it's going to get stuck to the card anyway. So there we go, all finished. I would just probably come back and stick a white panel inside with greeting stamped on it, just so that there's somewhere to write on the inside, because that's the only problem with the black card blanks. I am happy with this, but I am going to say, if I was going to remake anything with these sized pieces, I would not do it with die cut inlay. I love the technique and I love how this has turned out, don't get me wrong, and it's worked really well, but it was fiddly. So if I had cut this to 2.5 centimetres or 1-inch squares, I would not have had as many little bits that could drop off the edges. I had to re-glue quite a lot of little edges. So can you see here? This bit goes across an edge, and it's so hard to know where things are going to fall. And if I'd done it with bigger squares, I wouldn't have had as many little edges. I might still have had bits fall off, but there wouldn't have been as many. So I love the die cut and inlay technique, but I don't think I would do it on the small sized pieces. The small sized pieces and the measurements all work fine, but I don't think it's the best technique. You're better sticking with something that's flatter. So stamping and inking, pattern paper, that you've not got so many small things that you can lose. But yeah, no, the dimensions work. So using all your strips at 1 centimetre and cutting your puzzle to 1.5 centimetres, if you've got 5mm 1/2 centimetre foam tape, that all works and everything fits. It's tight. You have to make sure that everything's a bit straighter, but it all works perfectly well with those measurements. So the next card I thought we'd have a go at is a 5x7 card I'm going to do, but I thought I would do it so that you can see that you don't need to make the whole of your front panel of your card into a puzzle. You could have something else going on there as well. So I thought I'd use this stencil, and I'm going to use some sparkle medium, it's like a gel paste with glitter in it. And this is one of the ones that I rescued on one of my Use Your Craft Stuff videos. So you'll see it's a bit white and hazy in there, but I'm going to show you that it still works perfectly. And I've not done anything to this since I rescued it. Oh, it's a good few months ago now. If you look back in my videos, you'll see the Use Your Craft Stuff sparkle medium and how you can revive these even when they've gone completely solid. So I'm going to use that so you can see that it still works as well. So we're going to do a bit of stenciling, and I'm going to go autumnal today. I've got this Falling Leaves die, which came in a magazine a few years ago, but it's a hot off the press one. And from my haul at Farnborough at the Creative Craft Show last weekend, I've got these Happy Birthday, which are perfect size for a 5-inch wide, so 5x7 card. So I'm going to use these ones as well. Anything that's got a repeating pattern is always going to make a complicated jigsaw puzzle, or in this case, it's not a jigsaw puzzle, it's a sliding puzzle. So it's an A5 stencil. I think it's by Card Making Magic, which is one of the brands that Craft Stash sells. And I know Craft Stash is available in the US as well. So yeah, so this is Falling Leaves. So this is Simply Leaves A5 stencil by Card Making Magic. I've had this one a while. This is the sparkle paste that I rescued, and you might be able to see it's a bit lumpy, it's a bit cloudy looking, more so than when you buy them fresh, but I promise you this is still going to work. So although it looks lumpy, watch. When you actually come to put it on a stencil, other than I just lifted my stencil because I caught my spatula there, look, all those lumps just sort of come back out. And I promise you it still dries. It's easier to revive them before they go really solid, but this one was pretty much rock hard when I got to it. I bought this in a job lot of things on Facebook Marketplace. And even though it looks all this lumpy bumpiness, I promise you, you can revive them. If it's any sort of sparkle paste where the cleanup is with water, so you wash your tools in water, anything like that, then you can revive them. And I'll link in the description to the video where I explained exactly how to do it. I lift this off now. Now, because this is craft card, you can see where it's absorbed a lot of the water, but as it dries, that disappears and it gets more and more sparkly as it dries and as the glue dries out of it. Okay, so we've got our background, and I'm just going to bring on the one I did this morning just so you can see it side by side. In the best teleform, here's one I did earlier, and just to prove it is exactly the same thing, and I've just got it ready and cut it down ready to my 5x7 size. So this was exactly the same as this, and it had the wet marks on it, and hopefully you can see they're pretty much dried out of it. Hopefully you can see it, and you can see it's all lovely and shiny. So this, hopefully, is going to make a nice puzzle, and it's nice and tactile, so it's got, hopefully you can see it's got a little bit of dimension, but not enough that I won't be able to cut through it to make my puzzle later on. I thought it'd be quite nice to make the leaf into some sort of shaker, but obviously I can't have a shaker on puzzle pieces because it'll just fall apart. So what I thought we'd do, so you can see where I'm going with this is a 3-inch square of foam, which you can see my leaf die fits on nicely. So my plan is, before I make my puzzle pieces for the top, I'm going to cut out the top 3 inches, and we can have 2 puzzle pieces here and here, and then our puzzle pieces going across as usual. So that's the plan. I've not tried it yet. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully it just gives our puzzle something extra. I have cut my own strips this time. This is the last 5x7 card that I made, and because I used 3/16 inch strips on this one, hopefully you can see as you go towards the edges, your piece gets further and further out. For the maths to be exactly right, the tape, it should be 1/4 of an inch, so 4/16, 1/4 of an inch. And as you go further and further, you can see it really clearly on this row. Can you see my back piece is a long way over? So for this one, I've made them 4/16 of an inch. And the reason I've been making them 3/16 of an inch is because the actual foam tape that I've been using is half a centimetre or 5 millimetres, same thing. And that is 3/16 of an inch. So I'd made the strips on this card to match my foam tape. But actually, if you're doing it in inches, you want them closer to 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to make this card with the 1/4 inch strips that I've made in the same way as I made them for this. So the same foam that I'm going to make my shaker with, I just backed it with double-sided tape. This is Pound Shop double-sided tape, it's nothing fancy. So I backed it and then used my trimmer to cut it exactly as I did on the Gorgeous Girls card. I've also pre-prepared all of my strips. So I've got my 1/2 inch strips, I've got my 3/4 inch strips. So I've got all my foam pieces all cut, in this instance, to 1/4 of an inch. So these are just cut on my trimmer. So I've got my back panel, 5x7 inches, to match my front panel, which is also cut to 5x7 inches. So as I've done every other time, in the direction that I want to slide my puzzle pieces on, I'm going to mark at 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch, and 6 inches. And draw a line across. I'm just going to temporarily tape to it because it just helps my eye keep everything square and lined up. So I've got my lines square with the lines, and I'm just going to go and stick one of each of these onto each line. And don't do what I do when I'm filming and get carried away and forget that I'm leaving my top corner with nothing in it. So in this instance, look, I need this top corner to not have anything in it. So when I rotate it round, it will actually be the top corner. I know it's the bottom corner at the moment. So scissors and cut off this one. So for sticking these pieces down, we need to leave this top corner empty, Okay, and I'm just going to flip it over and trim all these extra bits off from the back. And I obviously need one across the top here. So now, as you can see, we've got this top corner left free so that I can put something different in here but still have puzzle pieces here and on the rest of the card. Our 1/2 inch pieces, again, I'm just going to line them up with my mat, stick one of my strips as close as I can get, nice and straight, down the middle of my piece. We don't need 7 full ones because I can cut this one off sort of roughly to start with. Same principle applies as when we've made these before. We've got our one in our slot and we've got our central one. So if I start with my central one again, and I want my 3/4 inch piece stuck as centrally as I can get on that. The same goes for all of these pieces. Now, I need a full slot in here because we're going to have a piece that comes all the way up to here. But I think I might just give it a little trim just so it's not going to get in the way. So, like I say, I haven't made this yet. This is my first time making this version of my card. So we need a mark 3 inches along, which it would be there. We can add it that way up. So I've just marked my 3 inches along, which is the bit that I'm going to leave out the top, and I'm just going to trim kind of a little bit off with my scissors. I'm not going to go mad. This is the mechanism inside the card. You'll see it when the pieces aren't in the card, but you won't see it when the card's made. So, looks pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do is peel the backing off my next strip. Like we've done every other time. Get this one so it's in place, butted up, so it's reasonably tight so the pieces aren't going to go flying out, and put my piece in there. And I've got a little bit of the sticky showing there. I'll just put some anti-static powder on. So there we go, we've got our first piece that will slide in and out. And then I'm going to do the same thing. My piece here, that side straighter because I didn't cut it. I'm going to slide that one in there, take the tape off the one that's stuck down, get one of my pieces, and I'm just going to butt it up to this piece, which is my 3 inch piece of foam. It's not stuck down, it's not doing anything yet, it's just acting like a placeholder for my 3 inch extra piece. So, because I know this is only 2 inches, I'm just going to roughly cut it off for now so I can reuse this piece on the next bit. This should, I think I've got this piece a little bit wider. It looks a bit wide, so I'm actually going to peel that one off, because if you look, these are supposed to be 3/4 of an inch. I think if I stick that to my mat, you can see it's wider. So I'm just going to make sure that I can get this one in here and then stick this on. All I need to do is trim off all these extra pieces. So there is the base of our card ready. But obviously we need to do something in this top corner. So I need to now think about how I'm going to use my top panel. And The first thing I'm going to do is cut my 3-inch square out of this top corner. So I'm going to do that. So I know it's this bit, so I'm just going to put a mark on the back to make sure I'm cutting the right piece out. So I've got my top piece that I'm going to make my shaker out of, and I've got a piece that's going to end up sliding in and out of here, and my top piece will cover this little bit that you can see in there. So this bit's going to stay on the card when these puzzle pieces come off. So I'm just going to run this through my die cut machine, and then I'll mark it and transfer it onto my foam as well. So I just ran it back through with it lined up with the foam, and I love how dies always pretty much cut perfectly through foam. So I took the middle piece out after I'd cut it and then cut the foam. So there's the walls of my shaker ready to pop onto here. Because I've got plenty of space round, I'm just going to cut a little bit off, just all the way around anyway. And then I can stick my leaf to my foam in the right position, and then there shouldn't be anything sticking out anywhere, if that makes sense. So this is going to end up in here, and once I've stuck my leaf on, there shouldn't be anything hanging off anywhere. Hope that makes sense. So I've got a piece of acetate that I can sandwich between these two. I've got all that glued ready. I am just going to leave that to dry. And I think I will put that on after I've done the puzzle pieces, so that we can make it line up to the puzzle. So this isn't complete yet. I want it to have the happy birthday down here. And I was also going to do, I think we'll do the same thing with the, so this die came with the outer edge and the veins separate. Yeah, and I think we'll do the same thing, and then we can stick that to the acetate as well. So I'm going to actually do the same thing and back this with some tape. So now this is just going to sit in here like a puzzle piece, and then it will match with my sentiment. There we go, we've got our shaker window built up ready. So what we need to do now is cut these into 1-inch strips. I'm just using my metal ruler where the dimensions go all the way to the end, the measurements go all the way to the end, just to roughly cut them into 1-inch pieces. So now all that's left for us to do is cut this up, stick it to there, and then get our shaker in. Because we've got these short pieces up here, I think I'm going to cut it this way first, and then we'll come back and go in the other direction. All I need to do now is, as we've done every other time, get my bottom edge as straight and square as I possibly can and work my way up my puzzle. So, as I've done every other time, I am just going to bring my scissors in, tip them. I'm not cutting the top panel, and anything that's hanging over the edge, just make sure that it's cut off So hopefully all my glue's dried on this now, and this will hopefully sit in here like this. Now, there was me thinking I trimmed enough off the foam at the bottom, and I've not. So I am actually going to have to peel up the glue. So on my card, because we've got our slot here, a nice strip, I haven't quite trimmed enough off this bottom piece of foam. So because I know that the foam cuts really easily, I'm actually going to do it. Be very careful, obviously, not to cut through the front piece. So what I've done is give my foam at the bottom a little haircut so that this will fit nicely in here. So last thing to do, other than stick it on my card blank, obviously, is finish our shaker. And I think just to make life easier so that I can just drop it in here when we're finished and stick it in, I'm just going to cut another piece. I can use one of my offcuts that's got some of this on and just use the back. And I'm just, from my stash, grabbed some sequins that I thought might go. If you look, these ones are very close in colour to the sparkle paste that we used. So all I'm going to do now is then put glue all over the back of this bit and drop it in. Although it's not the same shade of card, I think it'll be less obvious if there's any overhanging bits, sticky out bits, than if I used the white. It won't be quite so obvious if it doesn't quite match up everywhere. Hopefully you can see my shake bits up there. Having a little shake about. All these pieces, and all the others. So the 6 in this top corner come out, and then all the rows all come out. And they come out from both sides because we've gone edge to edge on this puzzle. But everything slides in and out. And I think this would be quite nice for somebody who was perhaps visually impaired, because there's enough texture in the pattern that they'd be able to feel. So hopefully they'd be able to feel the happy birthday and also feel the glitter texture. So there you go. You don't have to make the full front of your card into a puzzle. You can incorporate something else. I'm not sure if I actually specifically said it, but the other reason to use your foam, if you are going to put a shaker on like this, what's worked out really well, obviously, is because I use the same foam, this brown kids craft foam, to make the strips which are doing the job making the puzzle part. It's exactly the same depth as what I've used to make the shaker, and as long as you only run it through your die cut machine once, I've found the foam comes straight back to what it should be, especially if it's warm. And if it's a cold day and it's not springing straight back up, just warm it back up with your heat gun and it tends to spring straight back. If you run it backwards and forwards through your die cut machine 2 or 3 times, it won't come back. You just want to run it through the once. And I don't think I've ever had a problem with a die not cutting through the foam first time, but don't run it backwards and forwards because then it won't spring back even with heat. So there you go. Hopefully there's a few tips on there and a different idea. Obviously I've used a leaf, but this could be the idea of having a snow globe up there, or any other shape that you've got that you want to make a shaker out of. You can incorporate that and have less puzzle pieces, but still, because these pieces, these 6 up here, are going to look the same as these 4 down here, so only the ones with the letters on are going to be obvious where they go. It makes it a much harder puzzle, especially if you've got a repeating pattern like the stencil in the background. So yeah, I'm really happy with that one. Well, thank you for sticking with me through that long video. Hopefully there was something for everybody, something new in there for everyone. I'm thinking, is it time for Christmas? Do you think it's time for some more Christmas? I know I did Christmas in July with my spinning puzzle cards, but September, October, is it time for us to start on Christmas for real now? I have got one more idea, maybe a couple more for these non-Christmassy ideas. But if you think it's time for me to move on to Christmas, drop a comment down below and just say Christmas. It's fine. You don't need to say anything else. But that would be amazing if you think it's time for Christmas, or else I might carry on and do some more non-Christmassy ones. But if you think it's time for Christmas, comment Christmas. If not, you can also comment and say not yet. I completely get it. It's too early for some people. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you could like, subscribe, as I said at the beginning, all that lovely stuff. It really helps all us little creators. Thanks for watching. Bye.